buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning to you. Merry Christmas. Woo-wee. Man, last couple days here of the broadcast year for 2024 as we get ready to wrap up. Today and tomorrow are the final 2 days of broadcast. For this year, we will be going on vacation starting on Monday, and we will be off the air all the way through, through the new year. We'll be back on Thursday the 2nd for a kickoff of 2025. So I hope you enjoy your break and your time off and go out there and have a good time and just, spend some time with the family, enjoy the reason for the season, and hang out and do your thing. It's gonna be a good time. All right, today's program is pretty stuffed up, pretty big, pretty bad. Lots of stuff going on. We're gonna start off hopefully here any second. We're waiting right now on a call from US Senator Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan should be joining us on the program here, and we're going to be talking with him about the upcoming administration and so much more. It should be a fun discussion. We'll talk a little bit, hopefully, about the Jones Act and more. We're working on it right now. I think we have him on the show right this second. Let's check it out.
Hey, Michael, it's Dan Sullivan calling. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Dan. How are you doing today, my friend?
Well, we're busy here in DC, and I'm trying to get home to our great state for the holidays, but looks like we might be here a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, no, it's I've been watching it. And thinking, wow, it's going to be an interesting Christmas time. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Here and get started. I know that first and foremost, we want to talk about the administration and what changes are coming online there. But before we do that, let's talk about the shutdown, because it looked like this thing was going to be averted, but then somebody pointed out that there's a whole lot of stuff in this bill that doesn't necessarily need to be there. The president's put his foot down. The Doge, Elon Musk has kind of weighed in on this. There's a lot of things going on. So give us a quick rundown about what's happening and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so we had this continuing resolution, and as my team and I were starting to read through it, I'm not surprised it was pulled. It's 1,500 pages. It was released with limited amount of time to review. This is, Michael, this is one of the things that I just get so frustrated by. You have leadership, to be honest, on both sides of the aisle that make a habit of doing this, where they do a last minute thing, closed doors. The members don't know what the heck's in it. And then they, bring it out and say, all right, read it real quick. Otherwise, the government's going to shut down, or otherwise you're not going to go home for Christmas. And this is just par for the course. And it's just not the way to run the government. Now, look, I put a lot of blame on Schumer on this. We went through 12 appropriations bills this year, marked them up. The Appropriations Committee, that's called regular order. That's how we're supposed to run things.
Right.
And Schumer bring one of them to the floor. Not one, because the leadership likes to jam the members They like to make the call on what should be in these things. So, you know, I wasn't, I mean, heck, I was just starting to read through it. And I do think President Trump raised a good point on this issue. It's a little technical issue, is dealing with the debt limit, the debt ceiling. That's probably going to come due in, you know, May or June. And President Trump was like, wait a minute, Biden is the one who's blowing through the debt ceiling. This is the Democrats and Biden with their so-called Inflation Reduction Act, the so-called American Recovery Act. Not one Republican voted for that in the Senate, not one. It massively drove up the debt. So the President Trump raised a good point. Hey, why don't we deal with this debt ceiling issue now? Since Biden and Chuck Schumer are the ones who blew the debt open. The problem on that is that the leaders on both sides of the aisle should have been negotiating that. And it shouldn't have taken President Trump to say, hey, let's deal with the debt ceiling now, not in the middle of when Republicans gained control of the House and Senate and White House, when it was the Democrats and Biden who blew the hole through the debt ceiling. So a lot going on here.
Yeah.
I hope that we're going to fix it.
Some of the insider baseball on this is, of course, that's how the struggle for Mike Johnson to become speaker was in part due to the fact that many members wanted to go back to regular order. I mean, Congress has kind of abdicated its responsibility to do the budgeting process as outlined in the rules. And so, you know, the House is trying to do things in the regular way, but this business as usual of a continuing resolution, which is what, 12, 13, 14 years now? It's just crazy. And nobody knows what's in it. I mean, first of all, it violates the House rule for requiring at least 72 hours to read the legislation. And it's 1,500 pages long. It's also got all kinds of crazy stuff in it, like a raise for Congress. Talk about not being able to read the room. I mean, it extends.
And by the way, that was one of the provisions in there that was, for me, but I think for most of the members, was a complete surprise, right? We're reading through this. That was not, no one had talked about that. So these are the reasons why these kind of last minute, either omnibus big bills or this kind of CR, which is kind of a mini omnibus, they're just not the way to run the government. And again, I put a lot of the blame on Schumer. I'm not on the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, but the Senate did do the work in terms of appropriations bills that came out of committee, 12 of them, and Schumer never brought one to the floor. Why? Because this kind of end of the year stuff, guess who it gives the power to? It gives the power to the majority and minority leader in the Senate, the speaker and minority leader in the House. They do all the negotiations behind doors, and then they come and say, all right, here you go, guys, take it or leave it. If you don't take it, we're going to have a government shutdown. It's just not the way to run the country.
Well, and I think as you mentioned, the president elect mentioned, you know, specifically, if they do this on their watch, this is not a Republican problem. This is a Democrat problem. They're the ones, it's under Biden that this would have happened. So they'll try and pass it off as if it was President Trump saying something or something else. But the bottom line is that it happened on their watch. And this is where I think the Republicans in the past have blinked because they're afraid of being blamed. But if you're holding the line and you're trying to go back to regular order, you're trying to go back to what the rules and the law say, and the other people are doing it wrong, I don't see how you can't just in good conscience go, well, we've got to do what we got to do. We've got to take a stand, regardless of where the fingers get pointed.
Well, and as we're looking at, and again, now they're back in the rooms trying to figure this out. I do think that getting back to regular order is what our new majority in the Senate has been talking about. And I think that that's going to be really important. I'm also working on legislation. You don't want government shutdowns, in my view, don't end well, but I've tried previously when Schumer was shutting the government down to make sure like our military gets paid. And so there are all kinds of things we're trying to get done right now in anticipation. But it is something that we have to do a better job. And I think we will, getting back to regular order when the Republicans are in charge. Schumer loves to jam his members. Democrats in the Senate hate this too. But that's how he's run the Senate. And by the way, one thing that happened in November, which was really good, is getting the White House back under President Trump. But something else that I worked quite hard on, because I went and campaigned for a bunch of my colleagues and challengers, we booted Chuck Schumer as Senate Majority Leader. That didn't get as much attention, but it's really good for America. And by the way, really good for Alaska. Chuck Schumer really does not like our state. And I can go into a million examples of how now he's going to be booted, and that's great for our state and great for our country.
No, and I agree. I think returning to regular order and having Congress actually take up its responsibilities of passing a reasonable and responsible budget is critical, especially in this time. I mean, look, the debt is, I mean, we're going to be spending $1.2 trillion on debt service. Debt service. I mean, we cannot, it's unsustainable, Dan. The math doesn't work out, right?
It's unsustainable. And, that service element has now surpassed the amount we spend on defense.
Yeah, no, it's crazy stuff. The upcoming administration, we all expect it's going to be pretty good for Alaska. It's going to be pretty good for, I mean, in one way it's going to be good because it's going to expand. I mean, it's bad for the state as far as a revenue measure because the energy expansion policies are going to drive the price of oil down. But overall, in the long run, it could be really good. The president, I guess, was talking about reversing a lot of the things, spending a big executive session right after he gets sworn in. What do you expect to see?
Well, I couldn't agree more with you on, we'll have a federal government that wants to be a partner and opportunity again with Alaska, not our adversary. And, Michael, I carry this chart around with me. It's called the Last Frontier Lockup. Kind of show it everywhere I go. It's now the 68 executive orders and executive actions from the Biden administration singularly focused on shutting down Alaska. So it's not like, let's say, an EPA executive order that hurts a bunch of different states. This is 68 executive orders and actions singularly and exclusively focused on shutting down Alaska. I presented this to Biden saying, Mr. President, this is wrong. We know you're doing it because your radical far left lower 48 allies are telling you to do it. But declaring war on an individual state, which is what you and your administration have done, is just wrong, right? And I told him to Biden, if a Republican administration came in and issued, at the time I presented this to Biden, was 48 executive orders, I think, issued 48 executive orders against Little Delaware, and you were still a senator in the Senate, you would be raising hell on the Senate floor about your state being unfairly targeted by the executive branch. That's right. What's happened to a lot of what they did, Biden, was to reverse the progress we made under the Trump administration. So we are working day and night. I was just in a meeting with the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, John Barrasso, or he's the ranking member now. But we are working on this across several different areas. We are trying to work with the Trump administration to get executive orders that they can issue to reverse what Biden did to us, all on Alaska. We are working on what's called budget reconciliation, a great opportunity to unleash Alaskan energy. We have some big ideas on that. If you remember, Michael, in 2017, that's where we got ANWR open, because that only requires, budget reconciliation only requires 51 senators to vote for a bill.
Right.
If you fit under this construct, it's kind of technical. They call it bird rule here. And then finally, we are working with the incoming cabinet. I take this advice and consent role very, very, very seriously. I meet with cabinet officials. I meet with deputy secretaries. I meet with undersecretaries, assistant secretaries. And the number one thing I do in every meeting, this is now in the hundreds of meetings, is I say, number one, you got to commit to coming to Alaska with me, meeting my constituents, and understanding firsthand what our issues are, the opportunities, the challenges, And so I've been meeting with all these cabinet officials, very good meetings, and they're committed to come to Alaska, every one of them, learn about the great opportunities we present, not just for our own citizens in Alaska, but for America.
Well,
those are going well too. So yes, 100% I agree with you. There is enormous opportunities. I've talked to President Trump about this, to help our state, which when things happen well in Alaska for natural resource development and other things, it's good for America.
Right.
And
right.
look, I'll give you one final one that's just driving me crazy. You may have seen that. You may have heard about this issue of the Ambler Road. Biden shut that down, even though the Trump administration had approved that, even though ANILCA mandates that a right-of-way be granted for a road to the Ambler mining district. The Biden administration once again shut it down. I got it in the defense bill in the Senate to approve that right-of-way, which is what the law says. The Biden White House, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries in the defense bill stripped that out. So they shut down the Ambler Road to critical minerals in Alaska. And then last week, Biden's in Angola, and he announces that the United States is going to back a railroad in Angola with a bunch of U.S. taxpayer dollars for critical minerals for Angola.
Right. No.
But not Alaska, not for America, but we'll go to Africa and spend money. It's just crazy.
Senator, we have a hard out here in about 90 seconds, but a real quick question for Alaska specifically. Would you support an exemption to the Jones Act for Alaska for LNG tanking because of our South Central gas crisis? To get...
Well, look.
Go ahead quickly.
Well, thanks. I am focused on any and all ways in which we need to address our energy challenges in South Central, in Fairbanks. I recently, in September, took my 4th trip in the last 2 years to Korea and Japan, all about getting our Alaska LNG project off the ground, primarily to get gas to Alaskans and then to our allies. So I work on this daily because it's so important, but I will tell you this. We have to solve our energy challenges in Alaska with our importing natural gas from Canada and Mexico.
Hold the line for just a second, Senator. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. I'm sorry, Senator. I know you've only got another minute here, but I do want to expand on this real quick in the break here with the guests on the internet, because that's the problem with the Jones Act is that there's not a single American-built ship, flagged or crewed LNG tanker anywhere in the world. Nobody's ever going to build one, and it's one of the few ways we probably could get Alaska gas to our own market just by bringing it around the horn for a fraction of what it would cost to build a pipeline. And I know that, Alaska the Jones Act has not been friendly to Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, Puerto Rico, and there's been exemptions in the past. We need to have something done.
Well, look, like I said, one thing that I'm really focused on is making everybody aware that the way in which we're trying to address our energy challenges right now, and I never criticize the utilities. They got to keep the lights on. But to me, having the resolution of our energy challenges to importing gas from other countries as opposed to developing it from our own state just makes zero sense. So
right.
I am looking at all kinds of ways in which we can do that. There have been in the lower 48 other times when there's been Jones Act exemptions. So these are all the things that we got to look at to solve Alaska's energy challenges with our own energy.
Right.
So any and all options, Michael, that we can do on that. This whole idea of data centers and more natural gas to our military and data centers, which can lower the price of building a pipeline in terms of the cost. That's something the governor and I are working on closely. Good. Like I said, the Asian countries are really, really interested. They all trying to get off Russian oil and gas right now. And, you know, the best way in which they can do that, in my view, is get it from our state. We had a 50-year unbelievable record of exporting LNG from Cook Inlet to Japan. We're the most reliable supplier those guys have ever had. We can do that again, but the priority, of course, is gas to our own citizens.
So you would support an exemption to the Jones Act to get foreign LNG tankers to be able to ship it from the North Slope around the Horn, so to speak, maybe into the Cook Inlet, and then maybe elsewhere, right?
Well, I mean, I'd look at that. I don't know the details, but I'm like I said, I'm considering and working on all options to get energy to Alaskans from Alaska, not from Mexico. My goodness, it's a corrupt regime in Mexico, and we're about importing LNG from Mexico. It's just not a good idea.
Well, Senator, I'd love to have a longer form discussion with you here sometime in the new year, so I'll reach back out to Ben, but I'd love to have a good 25-minute discussion on options for Alaska gas that you see, things that we can do, whether it's Jones Act or something else, because this is becoming a crisis flashpoint for us here. In just a couple of years, we're going to be seeing the increase in costs and the you know, the austerity of gas, and it's going to be a tough time. So I'd love to do that.
I will tell you, this is an issue that my team and I, you know, we don't have all the levers, right, in terms of what we're getting done in terms of American energy. So I'm talking others that do, our legislature, the governor's office, but we are working this night and day because I agree with you 100%. We don't want Alaskans waking up, you know, 2-3 years from now saying, oh my goodness, we're importing gas from Mexico, Canada, we're undermining our own workforce. And what you just mentioned, which nobody's talking about, is that if we do import it from these other countries, it's going to at least double the price of what homes, businesses, schools, churches, hospitals are paying for gas. We need to get it from Alaska, not Mexico, not Canada.
All right, Dan. Well, we look forward to a new. We look forward to it in the new year. Thank you.
Yeah, happy New Year, and keep up the good work. And I look forward to being back on the show.
Thank you so much.
Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you so much for coming on board. All right, Senator Dan Sullivan, our guest here on the program. We're 15 seconds out from rejoining the radio, so here we go. Let's jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. I have some thoughts. I mean, you know I do. I have some thoughts, and we're going to continue that discussion right now. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Good morning, my friends. Just finished up with State Senator Dan Sullivan, and he didn't commit. He didn't commit to it, but I asked him during the break to come back on for a longer form discussion. One of the things that I find most frustrating, really, with almost any I mean, I've had the same thing happen with the governor and with other national type level guests, is that, you know, they're only available for, initially we were going to have Senator Sullivan on it in hour 2 today, but he was only going to be here for 12 minutes. Now that last segment, he was on for almost 23 minutes. By the time, even when I count the time in the commercial break, when he was still talking to folks on the internet in the chat room and stuff. But the problem is that you can see how we can't get through any real substantive discussion. I mean, there were questions flying in the chat room that, you know, that would have been great questions to ask. That would have been great things to talk about. And we got that chance to get in on that Jones Act question at the very end. And for those of you who weren't listening who were on the radio and couldn't hear during the commercial break, he kind of sort of said maybe that he would be interested in a Jones Act exemption. And the problem is that we, again, with so little time, it's like we can't nail down, you know, real answers, because They're used to jawboning around to jaw-jacking around a question, to go at it from every angle. And there's a lot of talking, but there's not a lot of, real true, at the end. Some people are confused. What does he really believe? So in the end, off the air, I mean, again, I apologize, but I'm a slave to the commercial clock. He said he would look at it. He would look at an exemption, because I said, okay, so you're saying that you are in favor of, a Jones Act exemption for Alaska. And he said, well, I will look at it. I will look at it. I don't know the details, but I will look at it. It's very difficult. It's one of the things why he didn't commit to it, but I told him that I want to get him back on for a long form discussion. I haven't had Dan Sullivan on this program in, gosh, it's probably been 3 years, maybe, since he's been on the program. Now, the good news is that his office actually reached out to me wanting to get him on the air, which is great. I'm excited about that. Because they're open to, because the last time I just quit asking him because I could never get an answer from him. But at this point, if this is good, then we're going to try and bring him on for a good, solid, 2 segments, maybe a full hour free-form discussion on how we fix some of these things. And he had some good answers. That he's not wrong. The regular order is the way to go. The working order. The regular order of the 12 budget bills being passed, not putting it together in a what was it? the Cramnibus bill. That's what Chip Roy from Texas called it. The Krampus Christmas Cramnibus bill. He said he called it a crap sandwich because it includes all kinds of things that just get stuffed in there. He's not wrong. That's why they want to continue this continuing resolution thing. That's why they want to continue to do it, because it gives the leadership of these bodies all the power. Doesn't matter what you do in committee. Doesn't matter what your budget bills look like. Doesn't matter what your individual bills that came out look like, where you spent time and effort and you did the job that you're supposed to do as a congressman or woman. That omnibus or cramnibus bill, it gives them the power to do whatever they want. They produce a 1,547-page bill and says we're voting on it day after tomorrow. I mean, who's got time to go through 1,500? Even if you've got your staff and you're like, you get 200 pages and you get 200 pages and you get 200 pages and we just sit down and start. I mean, even if you did that, there is just no way that in less than 3 working days, you could get all this done. And again, they violated the rules by not giving them 72 hours. The bill's 1,547 pages long. It stops all the automatic spending cuts required by the current law. It drives up the deficit by spending $110 billion on unpaid for disaster-related spending. It includes a massive healthcare package that's paid for with budgetary gimmicks. It extends the State Department's Global Engagement Center, which is working hard to suppress free speech online around the world, including here in America. It reauthorizes the Second Chance Act, which provides services to violent criminals. It harms refineries by allowing year-round sale of 15% ethanol gas. It provides billions in extra fundings to the Job Corps. I didn't even know this thing still existed. It's a failed and scandal-ridden federal jobs program. It authorizes millions for migrant and seasonal farm workers programs to give jobs to folks who are not citizens. And it creates a multi-million-dollar EPA pilot program to make recycling more, quote-unquote, accessible. But most insultingly, and I mentioned it, but most insultingly, it gives a pay raise to Congress. And Dan Sullivan said that was a surprise to us. We read that. We're like, what? That wasn't even talked about. I mean, again, talk about not being able to read the room. You see what's going on with the economy? Have you seen the grocery prices and you're getting a pay raise? Just out of the blue? It's madness. We've been talking about this for years. Congress has got to get back to regular order. They say Mike Johnson may lose his speakership over this. Well, because he had to kowtow to the Freedom Caucus over the regular order deal. And if he throws that to the wind because they're afraid of a government shutdown, apparently Newt Gingrich had a real good speech last night. He gave a thing talking about the shutdowns in the 90s. And it wasn't that big a deal, folks. A shutdown is not that big a deal. Everybody gets paid. It may be delayed, but what's the longest it's gone on? 3 weeks or something? But they all get back pay. They all get all that. It ends up being like a paid vacation. We need to stop. We need to stop being afraid of what happened the last time the government shut down. Remember that? There was a big deal. They took barricades and they put barricades around the Washington Monument. And I think, was it the plaza, the mall there between the house, the White House and the Congress? Didn't they put up like steel barricades all around and said you can't walk here because the National Park Service is closed? It's a public park. We didn't need somebody to hold our hands to walk by the reflection pool or to walk by the Washington Monument. But they literally had pictures of them putting up these, hundreds of yards of steel barricades to keep people out because the government is shut down. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. Sometimes I think that a government shutdown is the best thing that could happen because it wakes people up to everything that they're involved in that they don't need to be involved in. But come on. The government shutdowns have only become a really scary thing in the last 20 years or so, 15 years. Because before that, it happened and it raised, people's questions, but it didn't, it wasn't like the sky is falling and the roads quit existing and everything else happened. And if you're going to do it, now's the time to do it because, again, it's a Biden presidency. The Democrats are the ones that aren't following regular order. And you can't blame the Republicans for it. Yeah, they barricaded the national parks, which, maybe if you're going to Yellowstone, maybe I can, but again, the mall, the Washington Mall, the George Washington, the spire, right? The George Washington Monument. We have to put steel barricades around this 500 yards. You can't get any closer. Why? Well, because we're shut down. But it's just a spire we just, no. It's amazing to watch. This whole thing is just amazing to watch. All right. Well, here's hoping that in the new year, we get a chance to talk with Senator Sullivan. Senator Begich is already committed to coming on the program frequently to talk about things, and we're going to try and hold him to that. But if we could get Sullivan and Begich to come on a regular basis and talk in a long form way about a lot of these things, that would be amazing. Yeah, they tried to rope off the war memorial in D.C. That was the thing. All these open air, places, they tried to rope them all. No, sorry, Park Service is closed. Well, I don't really need you. I'm just going to walk around here, the Vietnam Wall, and look at it and read the names, and I'm going to go. Nope, can't get any closer. Sorry. Yeah. That's the thing. Everybody gets paid. You get a shutdown, however long it takes, guess what? They get full pay for all the days that it's shut down when they get back. It's a paid vacation. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, I accidentally closed one of my windows. That was a huge mistake there. Let me get this right here. Boom. How about that? Does that work? All right. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's gonna give us a warning. I accidentally, you know how it is. I got too excited and I jammed the wrong button. But I are a radio professional. Don't let anybody tell you any different. That's how it works around here. Okay. I see that the lovely Kristen Faulkner is in the green room hanging out. Look at her. She's eating my virtual donuts and drinking my virtual coffee. Leave me a sprinkled one, okay? Please. Let's go over there and check in with her and test out her audio to make sure everything is copacetic. That's my big word for the day. Let's go over there and do that right now. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Morning. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Holy cow, you're loud and proud. Let me turn you down just a little bit here because you are right there in my ear. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, let's try it again. How you doing?
I'm great. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Happy holidays.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Excited to have you back, coming back home, and we're going to get back to you here in just a minute, and we'll kick things off. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Don't eat all my donuts, Kristen. I know you're craving them. Okay, so just hold on, hold the line there for a second. Okay, I'm going to try and get through some of the comments in the chat room on our last segment before we go politics free in this final segment of this hour with Kristen to talk about what she's got going on. So let me see what. Let's see what's going on. Anthony says, fun fact, if you as a business spent 300% more than your profits and get $6.25 trillion in debt, you get shut down like forever. Not sure what rule book the government is working with, but at some point when playing Monopoly and you're using pieces of toilet paper for money because the bank is empty, you just have to call it quits. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but yeah, I mean, that's why I keep telling people like Dan Sullivan and Nick Begich that the math doesn't work. You can't argue with arithmetic. You can't expend more than you take in indefinitely. It doesn't work out that way. Remember, the state is not your friend. Harold says shutdowns. The workers just get a free vacation. They still get their back pay. Exactly. You know. Yeah, they barricaded the national parks. Let's see. Whoever it was that suggested a pay raise for these clowns needs to be fired immediately. I mean, that was, again, if Sullivan is shocked that this pay raise for Congress was in the CR, the Kremnibus, then, I mean, somebody had to propose that somewhere along the lines. I mean, again, take the temperature, folks. Read the room. Is it a good time right now in America with the economy and the inflation and everything else to give our elected leaders a pay raise? You know, Chris says on YouTube, he says, I don't know that I could handle the last 20 minutes for a full hour. I mean, we're going to have to nail some people down. We're going to have to nail some people down on this. When you're used to talking around the problem, it's good. I mean, it's hard. That's what I'm saying. It's not good. It's hard. All right. We're 30 seconds out from rejoining the radio. We're going to jump in with Kristen here. Rick says, so you're saying you're going to build us an LNG tanker, a U.S. flagged LNG tanker, because we can't have a foreign tanker do it. One wouldn't be enough. And they cost $500 million. That's what they normally cost, like $400 million, something like that. But those are ones built in Korea, etc. I mean, this is, see, I screwed up my timing because I killed my timer accidentally. So I lied. It's not 30 seconds. It is now 90 seconds. So it's 90 seconds from now that we're going to get started. See how that works? But that's the thing. Even if you build a brand new one, and Korea has got one of the one of the most expansive shipbuilding capacities in the world, I think the number that I saw was like $420 million or something to build a big LNG tanker. There's only a handful of them in the world. So if you built it in America, you probably have to quadruple that cost. So $2 billion for a tanker, only one. I mean, that's a tough road to hoe, my friend. That's a tough road to hoe. I don't know how they would do it. Rick said, I'll put this over here, Dan. I think a lot of us think you're a good guy, but we're getting sick of you talking around the questions. I mean, it's a politician thing. It is a politician thing for sure. They talk a lot and don't really nail down the substance. Sometimes that happens. All right. But I'm hoping we get him back on the program for, again, a long form discussion. I mean, that's why people like Joe Rogan are so popular, because it's the long form freewheeling discussion. That's what I like, but that's just me. All right. Enough of that. Politics aside, Kristen Faulkner, our guest. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do this thing. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Yep. Not your daddy, nor do I play him on TV. It's just me, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska. This is your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com. Joining us in this hour is gold medal Olympian and world record, world-renowned cyclist Kristen Faulkner. She joins us this morning to talk about a special welcome home that she's got coming up. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Morning, Michael. I'm great. I'm excited to return to Alaska. I leave tomorrow, so I'm really excited.
Well, I mean, that's good. It's hard when you're outside and you've been there for a while. You know, it's always fun for a while, and then after a little bit, you start to get that tug and that feeling like, well, this is nice, but man, I really want to go home. You know what I mean? It's just something about it that really makes people want to go home. Kristen, of course, you have had an amazing last year or so. Not only with your first, you just did the Olympics, of course, and you won gold in 2 different disciplines in the Olympics. You're the first American woman to ever do that. You also won gold and accolades in other areas, and you've just been on this like triumph tour, I think I would love to say. But now you're going to come home and you're going to be sharing your story and everything else with folks here. Tell us about what you've been doing and what we're going to talk about coming up on the 27th of December.
Yeah, great. Well, I have been, since the Olympics, I've been doing a lot of public speaking events. I've been traveling around, sharing my story and hopefully inspiring other young kids to pursue their dreams and to get outside and do what they're passionate about. So I'm really excited to come to Homer and share my experience about, the Olympics and kind of my lead up to the Olympics, my experience at the Olympics, and then also hopefully inspire some young kids to, either get on a bike or pursue their own goals and pursue their own dreams. So I'm really hoping that this will be a great welcome home, a chance to reconnect with the community, and a chance to inspire Homer's youth.
Yeah, the Homer Chamber of Commerce, the City of Homer, Land's End Resort, and the Homer Cycling Club are organizing this big reception. It's going to take place Friday after Christmas, December the 27th, 3 p.m. at the Homer High School Mariner Theater. And Kristen's going to share her journey onto getting onto the Olympic team, what it took to win medals. And, she's going to talk again to young people about getting involved in sports. Now, when you think about Homer, Alaska, and as a new transplant to Homer, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but when I thought of Homer, I never thought, boy, this could be the cycling capital of the world. You know what I mean? I mean, this could be, there's snow, there's ice, there's other things. This is not where people would normally think that somebody who's going to go for Olympic cycling in one way or the other, this is where it would start. So talk to me a little bit about that decision to jump into cycling at a competitive level, and especially doing it from Homer.
Yeah, so I had been an athlete my entire life. When I was in Homer, I was involved in Catch Max Swim Club. I did the Nutcracker. I did pretty much every school sport. And so I think Homer really cultivated my love for the outdoors and my love for sports. And it was, being athletic as a kid, trying to keep up with my siblings, keeping up with my friends in school. And I think Homer really taught me to push myself and challenge myself athletically and also to really dream big. And it was when I was in Homer that I first thought about my dream to go to the Olympics. And so I think Homer created that, it started that dream inside me, and it gave me kind of the athletic field to start working on it. And then when I moved to New York City, actually, is when I started cycling, more competitively. But I had actually started cycling around town when I was in Homer. I did the Homer High School Triathlon, and I had been a swimmer and a runner, but I didn't have much experience biking. And so it was the Homer Triathlon that really got me into biking, going up East Hill, down West Hill, up the Homer Spit. And I remember.
Uh-oh. We done lost Kristen there for a second. All right, we're going to see if we can reconnect with her real quick. Kristen Faulkner is our guest here on the program. Again, if you're going to be in the South Central area on the 27th of December, we'll see if we can get her back. On the 27th of December, it's going to be over at the Mariner High School Theater. And we'll try and get Kristen back over here. I mean, it's an inspiring story. And you think about Little Podunk, Homer, Alaska, as a place for somebody to launch from. It's pretty amazing here. All right. Looks like we lost Kristen completely now. So hopefully she dials back in, and we'll continue on with this. Don't forget, you can always reach out to us on the program if you want to talk to us off the air. My email address is me@michaeldukeshow.com. That's me@michaeldukeshow.com. If you would like to sound off and be part of it, either on the air during the program or off the air, you can also go to my website at michaeldukeshow.com, and there's a contact me form there, and I see all those things coming in here each and every morning on the program. So if you want to reach out to us there, you can. And of course, the final way to participate is by joining us on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble as we simulcast the radio show each and every morning. So feel free to come on board and talk with us, and we'll be good to go. All right, let me just do this here. I'm going to go ahead and reach back out to her via telephone because her internet apparently is spotty this morning. So let's see if we can get her on the program and get her going on here real quick. Again, Kristen Faulkner and the Michael Dukes Show. Try one more time. Maybe her phone died. I mean, who knows? I think she was on her phone.
Hello. Hi, this is Kristen.
Hello, Kristen. It's Michael. Yeah, we lost you. I don't know if your internet went down or what, but we lost you over there.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, my Wi-Fi went out. I'm in an Airbnb and it's been working all week, and then it just cut out. So I apologize.
Hey, no problem. So let's just finish up and continue here. We got about 3.5 minutes. So you were talking about being in New York. And starting to really get into competitive cycling then, after coming out of the triathlon in Homer. So continue on from there. Kristen?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you hear what I just said?
Yep.
Okay.
You said, riding in Homer and then cycling competitively in New York.
Yeah. So what led you from there to the Olympic? I mean, that's a big jump. I mean, cycling competitively, even in local races or regional race, all of a sudden to go, okay, Olympic gold looks good to me. I think I'll jump into that. Was there an aha moment where you said, this is what I need to do?
Yeah, well, so the reason I got into it in New York is I was living in New York City and I just really missed the Alaskan outdoors. And so I would go, running in Central Park or riding in Central Park every day to try and kind of get my outdoors fixed. And I just became really intense about it really quickly because I just wanted to be in Central Park as much as I could. In New York, jungle, and it was great for my job, but I just really wanted to be outside. So I started going to Central Park and riding my bike as often as possible. And I've had this Olympic dream from when I was a kid. And so I just said, what does it take to get there? And so I started riding my bike every morning at 5 a.m. I started riding every weekend. And then after winning some local races, some regional races, I met the manager of a professional team, and I joined kind of this domestic professional team in California. And I started doing, a few races in America. And then I went to Europe and did a month and a half of racing in Europe. And that's when I said, okay, I could really do this as a profession. This is a real job. And after that race walk, I came back and I left my finance job and I said, I want to do this full time. So I moved to Europe in 2021, and I've been racing in Europe full time ever since then.
It's an amazing story. What would your words of encouragement here with the last 2 minutes? Kristen Faulkner is our guest, by the way, Olympic gold medalist and hometown hero here in Homer. What would your words of wisdom or advice be to any youth who sees something, whether swimming, fencing, track, whatever, or any other, maybe not a sport, but maybe some kind of attainable goal out there? What would your words of wisdom be to them?
Yeah, I would say there's no dream that's too big. If you want something, just work hard and believe in yourself and set the bar really high, set your goals really high, and continue chasing them. There's going to be a lot of setbacks along the way, a lot of challenges, but if you just continue to believe in yourself, then I really believe anything's possible. So if you want to be an athlete, or if you want to be a writer, if you want to be an actress or a musician, just believe in yourself and follow your dreams, and start following people that are role models for you, and they'll hopefully inspire you to see what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see people with goals, and of course, you have you've made history here already with the Olympics, and we look forward to seeing what you have to say on the 27th. Again, Kristen's hometown homecoming is going to be on the 27th over at the Homer Mariner High School Theater. And folks are able to come out and hear her story. 3 p.m. Friday, December 27th, and we get a chance to celebrate Kristen, her achievements, and hear that story from Kristen Faulkner, who grew up right here on top of the world in Homer. Kristen, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. We'll see you when you get home. Thanks for coming on board this morning.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing everyone in Homer on the 27th. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Thanks so much for coming out. All right, folks, that brings us up to the top of the hour. We got to go. Chris Story, also from Homer, or kind of Homer Center today, is going to be coming on board and talking about his new fair tax plan for the Kenai Peninsula Borough and maybe beyond. All right, Kristen, thank you so much for coming on board and being with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Anything else you want to tell the folks out there? Just you, me, and 70 of our closest friends on the internet?
No, thank you so much for having me, and I'm just really excited to come home. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get online, and look forward to seeing everyone in Homer.
Good. Are you getting home before Christmas? You're going to spend Christmas with the fam?
Yeah, I get home tomorrow, so
Okay.
I fly home tomorrow. I'm
Good.
very excited. Yeah.
Good. All right, Kristen. Well, thanks so much. And again, tell your dad Merry Christmas for me, and thanks so much for being part of it today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Kristen Faulkner, our guest here on the program. Okay. Woo. Willie says, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone in the 6 o'clock club. That's right. You guys are all members of the 6 o'clock club this morning. Good morning. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Donna says, dang it, I'm going to have to get on that recumbent bike I bought 3 years ago. She's not only inspiring the young, she's inspiring the old too. Great job, Kristen. Oh, man. It is good stuff. Brian said, I've been listening to Sean Ryan recently. I don't know who Sean Ryan is. I'll have to go listen to that. Some of his stuff is really out there, but he has some great guests, and I like the long format, especially when talking national security issues. Long format is the only way to go. We got so I think the curve is finally we're finally coming around the bend on that curve, because you remember when Twitter first started, only 148 characters. And it seemed like then it became we became the soundbite capital of the world, where interviews were 4 minutes long, because they always said, well, nobody can pay attention. Nobody's got that kind of attention span. And then it turns out that no, what people really like is a long form, thought-provoking, wide-ranging discussion. And that's what we get here. That's what we're trying to do, is a long form, wide-ranging, thought-provoking discussion. And I think that's good stuff. I always hate those kind of 12-minute interviews, because you're just not even getting into the meat of anything. It's like a gloss over of everything, especially depending on who the guest is or who you're speaking to. If you're trying to pin them down on a specific answer, it makes it more difficult, because you're trying to get more than just one question in. And that's always difficult. Speaking of difficult, Chris Story joins us this morning to talk about the fair tax. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Great program today. Thanks for letting me be part of it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on board, sir. It's good. This is an important topic. This is something that I think is super important for all of Alaska. Is this this idea that we need to find some other way or better way to fund government than taxing people out of their properties. And I am just so frustrated watching this year after year and place after place, not just on the peninsula, but in other places. I have seen it even in my own family, where people have left property to other people that has been owned free and clear for half a century. And yet they have to turn around and end up having to sell it because they can't afford to pay they weren't in the same position that their family member was that bequeathed it to them. And I mean, it's an expensive proposition, and they end up having to sell their family legacy because they can't afford it. And that's just, to me, that's so irritating. So irritating.
You're going to start cycling around Homer?
Wow, non sequitur. Yes, I'm going to start cycling around Homer tomorrow.
Well, we got to save the good stuff for the. I've only got so much balloon juice. We got to save the good stuff for when we come back. But yeah, no, she's Kristen. Wow, this is so impressive. The whole family. I mean, John Faulkner comes from a long line of people that accomplished a lot, and still it's interesting that it's great to see it just continue on with her and cycling. But yeah, what a neat story.
Yeah.
And and I apologize, I was so disappointed. I will go back and listen to your conversation with Sullivan. Did he vote for the CR even though he didn't understand that there was a pay raise in it?
No, they haven't. No, I don't think he did. That was what he was saying. He was standing against it the whole time because they.
Okay.
So, I mean, at least there's that.
Was he standing against it and then voted for it, or did he just?
Well, we didn't ask. No. I didn't ask that specific question, but he basically said, "We're fighting right now." So
you have to be careful what questions you do ask. The last conversation I had with him, I did start asking. This is 2+ years ago, about the bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and instantly his press spokesperson texted me and said, "This is it. We're done. We got to move on." And like, wow, okay, so this.
Wow.
Anyway, but I'm glad that you're going to have him back. I hope so. I'd love to hear him address term limits.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't. He didn't commit to anything, but I told him I wanted him to come back for more long form discussion because.
Do you remember Amanda Coyne? Are you friendly with Amanda Coyne?
I remember Amanda Coyne. Yeah,
she's his main speechwriter in person back there in DC, and she'd be somebody you'd want to kind of connect with if you're going to have access to him. I think that's a big piece of it. Ben Dietrich does whatever he can as his press guy, but I mean, Amanda's the real, I think, the driving force back there. She formerly created a member of the Alaska Dispatch with Tony. I can't remember his last name, but anyway. So, he's definitely got media people there, and they don't really, any of them, like free and open discussions. You got to ask, just the placating type.
Everything's kind of parsed out and vague, and I hate that, but we'll see what we can do. All right, Chris, hold the line for a second. We're going to be right back to you. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty Based, Free Thinking Radio.
Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on that thing we call the internet. Newfangled contraption that it is. And live around the world, of course, on regular old terrestrial radio, on your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Welcome to hour 2 of this beautiful Thursday. Again, just for a reminder, this is the last Thursday broadcast for the year. In fact, this is the last broadcast week. Tomorrow will be our final day of broadcast for 2024. And we are looking forward to a little bit of a break, although it's going to be a working vacation as I try and get these radio stations up and on the air on all the new equipment that we're putting in and getting everything together. So it's going to be a busy time. But we will be returning to the airwaves on Thursday, January the 2nd. So Thursday, January the 2nd will be the first day of broadcast for 2025. And I hope you have a good holidays and come back ready to tackle the new year. That's the plan. We'll see how this goes, right? So we're going to see how everything works and rolls, and we look forward to having you on the 2nd of January. All right. In this hour, we're bringing back onto the program the guy who's normally our guru of positivity, but today he's coming on to talk with us again. This is the second discussion we've had about the property tax situation. Really the property tax situation around the state of Alaska, but it's been exacerbated down here on the Kenai Peninsula as the growth of Homer has really pushed property values high, and it's forcing locals out of their homes. And we need to take a look at that and talk about that. Chris has got an idea. He's calling it the fair tax. So we welcome Chris Story to the program this morning to discuss it and go over it. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And just a small point of clarification.
Okay.
The Fair Act. But
Act,
nevertheless,
okay.
You're on the right. Exactly. We prefer no tax at all, but of course that ain't gonna happen. And there is no such thing as a fair tax. Really, it's confiscation of your money.
Is theft.
But
Taxation.
But nevertheless, the Fair Act. I appreciate it. I've been here before talking about it. I hope to come back and talk about it. And if I could, I'd love to just put a little bit of context around sort of the idea and where it, sort of the genesis of it.
Yeah, no. Let's start from the beginning. For folks who have missed it and don't know what we're talking about exactly, they need some groundwork. So feel free to lay all that groundwork.
So as a real estate broker, and this is something I learned 25 years ago when I jumped into this career, that you become a bit of a factotum to your community, almost an ambassador to the community or through the community, from people moving in, people moving out, and just within the community. And what happens every single year that there is your assessed values get updated by the borough assessor's office, and you get something, a formal notification in the mail well in advance of the tax being due, so that you can file an appeal, you can call and discuss it with the assessor and or her officers in their department and discuss where they've come in at with your values. Well, big part of that conversation is with your known, liked, and trusted real estate broker. And so for, like I say, about a quarter of a century, I have been taking these phone calls and working with people and saying, well, okay, let's see, what have they done? Okay, they've got your improvement value. I see where they got their land value. Let me do a quick analysis of what I think the actual market value is. And we help guide people through this process. through that endeavor, I have, and this is an exact quote from one of the assessors, I don't care what the appraisal was. I know how that game's played. And they came in incredibly over 100,000 above the appraised value, just simply for the fact that, no, I don't care what the appraisal says. We know how that game is rigged. That's a quote. Another stories, I mean, I've got so many anecdotal stories, but the point is there's human beings involved, I believe, doing the best they can to follow and comply with the state statute, which requires the assessing department tax or at least assess properties at their true and fair market value. We know fair market value is defined by the least a willing seller will accept and the most a non-compelled and willing buyer would pay, thus creates fair market value. Even still, when that's been demonstrated in real world documentation of a sales contract and an appraisal, if the assessor deems you have to have gotten a good deal, quote unquote, they can come in wherever they want higher than that and violate the very essence of what is fair market value. That's not a majority of the cases, but it can happen. Okay, all of this to say, for all these, over 2 decades, I've been dealing with people and their property taxes and helping them sort of as an ombudsman sort of to the assessing department and how this world works. Kamala Harris in her stage left, she's wringing her hands with lots and lots of ideas, one of which was, we shall, in my administration, implement a tax on unrealized gains. In other words, your capital gains, paper gains on your stocks and investments, we are going to begin to tax that. And we're going to start to close the gap between the wealthy and the poor by taxing unrealized gains. We'll get these guys, these billionaires that aren't paying enough for their fair share. We're going to get them this way. And even her most ardent supporters, her most left-leaning people walked away from that and said, well, that's ridiculous. That ain't never going to happen. That's a dumb idea. That's a bad idea. That would grind investment to a halt. That would freeze capital out of the markets and all the things and the very logical explanations that people gave to oppose it. I had an epiphany. My God, suddenly I had this realization. This is exactly what we're doing here in Alaska, specifically on the Kenai Peninsula Borough, my home borough. This is where I have 100% of my knowledge base comes from working with the assessing department here. I can't speak to other boroughs or parts of the state, but I thought this has got to stop. We're taxing you on a paper gain that you may never realize in your lifetime or the next generation, and yet that's the basis with which we're taxing. That's got to stop. Sat down, came up with a couple of ideas. Again, California got it right on this one with Prop 13 back in 1978, whereby they capped the rate of taxable value at what you paid for it as per the basis year of 1976. They looked back 2 years and said, okay, we're going to go back to that basis, and what you paid is your taxable value. And then if you sell it, whomever buys it, that new sales price shall become their taxable value, but yet it freezes. And so what we want to include in this FAIR Act is a variety of things we can get into, but it would be personal, your primary residence for your own residence, and your investment properties, multifamily, commercial, industrial. We are wanting to encourage investiture in the Kenai Peninsula Borough. We're looking for people to come here as a tax haven, and this would create so much stimulus within the economy. And that's what gets me up in the morning, Michael. Gets me excited.
Right.
Wake up on top of the world.
Right. And your initial entry into this was that people during the assessment time, you would get phone calls, right? I mean, you'd get phone calls from people that knew you were an expert, a quasi-expert on property and real estate and everything else. And they would say, hey, I just got this assessment and how do I fight this? Right. I mean, this is what was happening because people
Precisely.
were being valued out of their places that they'd owned for years, and all of a sudden the valuation goes up 20, 30, 50, 80, 100%. That was kind of the genesis of this, right?
Absolutely. In fact, one story, and albeit anecdotal, and this is just you got to take my word for it. I have no reason to distort this. This is a real case. In 2021, paid $620,000 for their home. Retired couple moved into our great city of Homer, Alaska, with in mind, okay, we have a fixed income. We know what our tax is going to be. We enjoy a $350,000 exemption for being senior citizens. Thus, we'll be paying tax on the balance. We can do it. We can make a life here. And their assessed value, Michael, in 2024 went to $1.3 million. And I did a market evaluation for them. I couldn't justify that. I couldn't show them or demonstrate to them that was probably fair market value. I think that they were off, but they were maybe off by 300,000. So even still, as a result of what took place in the market here, these folks were going to be increased their taxable value by 400. Even if we could get the borough, beat them down to $1 million, they were still going to be 400,000 higher than what they paid for it and alter their outcomes. And they must move. They cannot afford to stay. The tax is pushing them out. And cry a river for the $1 million homeowner. No, it's not fair. They worked their entire lives to get to a point where they had enough capital to invest in a home they wanted, make the improvements on it that they wanted, to live out the rest of their days. And we're going to tax them out of not just our city, but our borough. That's insanity. And it's unfair. And I know fair is a relative term or almost a spectrum, but it is wrong. That's an easier way to say it, but that's not a good act, the wrong act. So we got to be the fair act. And we got to freeze these assessed taxable values such that when you invest in a property here, you can see the landscape ahead, you can plan accordingly, and you can feel safe and secure investing in my backyard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, I was saying that I even have family members who've suffered from something similar to this, where they their family member had bought a piece of property in the 40s or 50s, and they built it up as a recreational or a holiday site, vacation site. They'd owned it for 50 years, free and clear, and then it gets passed on, and all of a sudden it becomes a struggle because maybe the financial situation of the next family member is not as good as it was for the person who owned it originally. And all of a sudden they're struggling to be able to just pay taxes on a piece of property that's been owned free and clear for decades. And eventually they, end up having to sell it because they can't afford to keep it, but not on upkeep, not on a payment, not on anything else, simply because the taxation is so. And people go, well, cry me a river. They got to, but their parents worked hard, or their grandparents worked hard to put all those things on and to pay it off and to be able to give something to their kids that they could hold in perpetuity. And now it puts them in a financial crossroads where they have to decide, do I want to keep this bequeathment? Do I want to keep this legacy that my family has given to me? Or do I just need to sell it and move on because I can't afford to do it? And that's something that we shouldn't have to face on something like this, in my opinion.
A decision made with a gun to your head. And by the way, it's a neighbor holding that gun. We're all neighbors. We've done this to ourselves and to each other, and we can undo it as neighbors and as Alaskans. We can undo this. To your point exactly, within the FAIR Act, we say transfers within families, such as from parents to children or grandparents to grandchildren, would qualify for reassessment exclusions, encouraging generational property retention. That matters. That matters. And I'll give you another example. And this is a direct quote from a former borough mayor. I want to make it very clear. It wasn't from Mayor Machicki. This is from a former borough mayor. When I was discussing an elderly person's plight with them, asking for reconsideration on this assessed value, I went beyond the assessing department to the borough mayor, who I was friendly with. And I said, look, this is an elderly person on a very large chunk of land they've had since 1950. And her husband has passed. She would like to remain there for the rest of her life. This tax is getting out of control. And he said gleefully, she can sell it. She could subdivide and sell it. And I said, excuse me, she's 85 years old. How dare you say she, in order to retain her present lifestyle and her home, she has to now become a developer? How dare you? That to me, that was the end of a friendship in that one sentence.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of disregard for those that have built the foundations on which we stand today is deplorable and disgusting. And so what I also put into this is senior citizen exemption, period, 100% for primary residence. If you're 68 and you own an apartment building, okay, the apartment building is going to generate income for you. You're going to pay a property tax. Your primary home, where you live and land adjacent to it, shall not. So if you own 4 acres and have a 50-acre adjacent parcel like my grandmother did, right up until the moment she passed, that's tax-free. And then it can be passed to the next generation. Likewise, at a similar assessed value from when that basis year was.
Chris Story is our guest. We're talking about his proposed FAIR Act, which is a new property tax formula that he's been discussing. We're going to talk about some of the specifics here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Yeah, it was wow. It's kind of it's infuriating when somebody looks at you like that and says, well, they should just do this. I mean, this comes back to that. It's the greed of government, right? I mean, they want to find a way to get as much funding as they can to spend it on whatever they want to spend it on. And this is part and parcel of that problem. Is once the gravy train is started, it's all nearly impossible to stop. California did it, but are we going to be able to do it? That's the question.
What's most fun here is that I'm babysitting my mom and dad's yellow lab, and as soon as I said Kamala Harris entered stage left, I kid you not, this is where I do wish it was on film, he vomited all over the floor.
Of course he did. Of course he did. Yeah,
she just couldn't take it. She just started, and I was like, what is happening? Of course, I had isolated the voice on my phone months ago. A guy helped me do this, whereby background noise is eliminated to almost nothing. You could be in a room full of pirates and on the phone, and all the listener, all your person you're on the phone with is going to hear is your voice almost primarily. It's amazing with these iPhones. But so I was hoping you weren't hearing the herking.
I wasn't hearing the herking, although I do have to admit, I hear the snoring sometimes from your own.
Yeah, that's gotten better. It's gotten better. Whereas you used to be able to hear Reagan snoring from across the room. Now he has to be in my lap.
Yeah.
When you and I are on the phone for you to hear it. So it's not a perfect solution, but at least nobody heard the vomiting on air.
Yeah, no, that's all. Yeah, that's never good. That's never good when that happens. Mm-hmm. But now you can't say Kamala's name anymore, apparently, because if it hears Kamala's name, that's what causes it to throw up. So don't repeat the name. It's fine. Right. It'll be okay. Some comments from the chat room. Some people say, what's Jeannie say? She talks about her own experience. She said she bought 77 acres on the Kenai Peninsula for $85,000. No access, no utilities. They immediately valued it at $150,000. She said, insanity. She says it's been on the market for 4 years with no offers. She also said, I got my property tax bill from Washington and went down to $2,900 for $450,000 in valuation. She said, my Washington taxes are significantly cheaper than my Alaska properties. It's ridiculous. And I mean, that's part of the problem. I mean, when you look at it, you go, this just doesn't make any sense at all when you're valuing, especially these stories about people being valued right out of their own homes. They've got to go. That's a problem.
I bought where my office is located. I bought from somebody. This property been on the market for off and on for 3 years. Nobody would buy it. Nobody would even rent it. It wasn't it was the wrong place for a residence. So I paid appraised value, and I made a deal with the seller, paid appraised value, but it needed a lot of finish work. The builder had gone bankrupt in the process and didn't quite finish it out. So we had a tremendous amount of work to do. the borough immediately assessed it at, I think somewhere around 50,000 higher than what I paid. And that was a direct quote from one of the assessing workers, was, well, maybe you just got a really good deal. When I told him, I said, look, here's what I paid. I fully disclosed. I said, here's what I paid. Here's the contract. Here's the closing documents. This is what I paid. And that was a quote. You probably just got a good deal.
Wait,
oh man,
it was on the market for years. How did I get a really good deal? I mean,
I had so much investment to make into it, and then of course, never mind the fact that it took a year to rezone it to where it could actually become a functioning commercial property. So yeah, this is it's just we could go on for days on other anecdotal stories. Any other stories in the chat?
No, I'm looking here. Jeannie Elsie says, my personal opinion is that Safeway in Homer needs to relocate. They can't expand. They can only get so many shipments, and their dock is so packed you can't unload the freight. And then David says, Safeway has room to expand. The city of Homer won't allow it. That is, that's, again, you were just talking about rezoning. And I know that at one point, Fred Meyer had talked about building something out in Homer, and there was so much pushback from the city. And, if you need more choices, you've got to allow some expansion. And that's part of the problem that we're seeing now, is that it also ties down expansion and investment in the community if these kind of things happen. So let's jump in on that when we get started, and then we'll read through what you sent me here the other day. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Chris Story is our guest. Let's do this.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're back. Chris Story is our guest, the man from Homer. Normally, he comes on and talks to us about, life coaching and positive mental attitude stuff and things like that. But his day job is that he's a real estate broker, and he is a realtor, and has therefore got his finger on the pulse of everything going on with properties down here on the Lower Kenai Peninsula and everything else. And he discovered this back in the early 20s that people were being forced out of their homes due to property valuations. The people who had purchased had been here for years and decades in some cases, or had come down here on a fixed income. That the valuations of their homes were literally driving them out of the market, forcing them to sell or subdivide or do something. And he recently had kind of an epiphany and decided, we need a new tax structure for property taxes. And we were just talking here as we came out of the break about expansion, about investment in a community. One thing I've noticed about Homer here is there's not a lot of choices when it comes to groceries, right? I mean, it's pretty slim around here, and it's more expensive, and the availability is pretty low. And I know a lot of people say, well, just drive to Kenai. Well, we can, but I mean, it would be nicer to have it here. But I know that there's some stories of people or businesses that wanted to expand down here that had a hard time, either due to the valuation or, the zoning or things like that. But this kind of stuff where the valuations continue to climb and climb and climb is a disincentive for that kind of investment, right, Chris?
Yes, and to your point relative to zoning or tax calculation and how we assess our own properties, what we've done is circle the wagons and said, look, inside this circle, we're going to create a safe place for us all to live. We're going to educate. We're going to protect. If your wagon catches fire, we've got a system to put it out. If you get sick, we've got a system to help you get better. Inside this circle of wagons, we created it, and we have an opportunity to amend it. We'll so often look to existing laws on the shelves and pull them down. Oh, sorry, there's nothing we could do. This is the policy. This is the procedure. This is the law. This is the code. This is the ordinance. And it's a little bit like going into a scoop shop, an ice cream shop somewhere, and the owner is scooping the ice cream, and you say, could you just put a little extra? Oh, sorry, we have a policy. What do you mean we have a policy? You created it. You can change it. You can ignore it. You can alter it. And some people get a deal. Some people know the right people. Some people get sort of a handshake. That's wrong. And relative to assessed values and properties, we need something that is ubiquitously across the board, equal and fair. And what I determined was very late in life. I don't know how I discovered this so late, but everybody I've talked to, whether in my profession or in the media or investors or just Joe on the street, this is taxation on unrealized gains. You get that, right? Like these are paper increases, not realized, and you're being taxed on it. Nowhere else in the world, nowhere else in the economic world does that happen. As such, this is one of the planks that we discussed a moment ago, and Kamala Harris's plan that was rejected, repudiated. Said this is ridiculous. It's insane. So we could do something different. The question then becomes, well, where are we going to get the money? We're
Right.
going to fund roads, schools,
Right.
fire. We still need the things that we've circled these wagons for. We still need services inside of it. And there's ways to increase that. But I just want to point out in the Homer City Council meeting, I want to say it was late October, could have been a September meeting. I don't remember why I was even listening to the meeting, but I remember Ken Kasner, former mayor, asking his champions to go around the room, go around the council, talk about your little pet thing that he's put you in charge of. And one of them was a gentleman who was in charge of revenues. And he said, wow, we've really, with these increased tax values this year, we've increased our revenues. You know, we've almost like they were celebrating this big windfall. Where'd that come from? And let me ask a different question. If we don't have that quote unquote windfall into our little municipal coffers, where does that money go? If we reduce, let's just use $1 million for conversation purposes. Let's say we reduce the taxable outflow from my pocket to the government, from your pocket to the government. We reduce our tax consequence in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, or just in Homer, by $1 million in a single year. Does the money vanish? Does it automatically get invested offshore? Does it automatically go to a Cayman account? Does it go into Bitcoin and disappear into the ether? Does it get invested on the stock exchange? No, it gets spent here. And what happens with every dollar that's recirculating within your community, it is taxed. It creates jobs, employment. It creates opportunity for everybody. And the government's got their fingers in all of those pies. So as those pies begin to get larger, so goes the coffers. The government will
Right.
not be hurt by this.
Right, right. Now you've got a letter to the editor, I know, that kind of lays out the FAIR Act in a few easy short steps. So why don't we walk through what you're proposing here, and
Mhm.
how you see it moving forward. So you got 4 or 5 steps here. Why don't you walk us through how you see the FAIR Act laying out in the Kenai, and again, this could be applied to any borough in the state. I mean, because again, we're these problems are not just. I mean, it's exacerbated down here because of some of the pricing in the properties down in the Southern Peninsula. But I mean, I've seen the same thing happen. Like I said, in Fairbanks, I know it's happening in Anchorage for some people there, especially people on a fixed income, and it could even in the Matsu. This is something that could be picked up by any borough in the state that wants to. But walk us through this piece by piece here, Chris.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And this is the homeowners actually did just email me last night and accept this as a point of view. So it'll be coming out, I believe, next week. But yeah, so the FAIR Act generally, you know, I broke it down just for purposes of the conversation to about 6 component parts, and establishing a base year is basically step 1. I picked 2018. The group that I'm working with to help put this together, we talked about it and said, look, when did we start to see pretty big escalations? When did we in the Southern Peninsula specifically begin to enter into a 7-figure market such that $1 million sales don't surprise us in the least? And you could be in your neighborhood tomorrow. You don't know. It could happen. 2018, if we go back 2 years prior to, you know, when the pandemic started, and we started to see some hockey stick style price increases across the country, and partly driven by scarcity, partly driven by really cheap interest rates. I mean, sub 3, sub 4, regular every day. 2018. So pick a number. You got to start somewhere. California picked 1976, 2 years prior to their act. I went back a little further here just because of some of those hyperinflated values that we saw in 2020 forward. Didn't feel that was a fair place to start. So I picked 2018. All right, that's our base year. If we were to pass this through the Kenai Peninsula Borough, your taxable value would revert from what it is today to what it was in 2018, or whichever is lower. If for some reason your 2025 assessment is lower, taxable value is lower than it was in 2018, fine, we'll use the lower of the two. But we had to pick a base year. Second piece of this would be consistent tax rates. And we got to have a rate. We can't just turn off one spigot and say, oh, okay, open up the other and turn down the taxable value, but up the mill rate such that it's just as unaffordable. So we have to maintain some sort of a cap on that. And I'm putting 1% of the value at maximum, but that's open for debate. That's open for discussion. Then nothing's set. This is a people's plan. This is us discussing this collectively as American individuals and Alaskans. All right. I'm not proposing collectivism. This is just, though, it's going to take a community. We did this to ourselves as a community. We can undo it as a community. Okay. Third point is the transfer. Talking about, we kind of hinted at that a minute ago, within families, we'd like it to remain non-adjusted. So if you hand down your home to your son, you sell it to him, you don't have to hand it down. You can even sell it to him. Then the assessed value would remain the same to promote generational property retention. But when you do go to sell a home, let's say it's arm's length, it's beyond your family, this is not generational passing down of wealth, this is just literally a sale, your assessed value would, the taxable value would go from, say, $400,000, where it's been for you for 10 years, it would go to whatever the buyer's paying. Maybe it's $550,000. Okay, now that's their baseline. And they know it, though, and they can count on it, and they can calculate it, put it into their matrix and the framework by which they can know they'll own that property. And security, what do markets need, Michael? Stable markets need security. The investors need to know. Homeowners that are moving here, they need to know and have that security. We can offer that to them, and that will create a more stable population base as well, bring more incomes here, and just generate more economy. And then, as I mentioned before about the seniors, that'd be the fourth point of this, protecting the most vulnerable. It's not just that every senior citizen is vulnerable. Some are incredibly well off, some are on a very limited fixed income. It's the notion that, will you ever own your home? Or will you, for the rest of your days, rent it from the state? This case, the state being the borough. Will you always be a serf to that lord? No, we need to stop that. You reach the age of 65, you no longer pay tax on your home. It's yours free and clear. If you think you own it today and you don't pay your tax bill tomorrow, you're going to find out who really owns that property.
Right.
And we need to stop that.
No, I mean, I agree totally. That's the one that I think that's the most egregious. Between that and the family transfer, those are the two things that I find most egregious about the current structure.
And the fifth point is talking about a speculative market. In other words, if I sell my home, and let's just say that I could sell my home right now for $550,000, and I go to rural Mississippi, and I can replace my home equivalency of size and comfort and amenities and everything for $200,000. But heretofore, that market was really more in the $150,000 range, and I come in and pay $200,000. Tell you what, because I'm spending cash, I'm going to go $250,000 and just eliminate the competition. And suddenly, I've set a new market for them at $250,000 cash. Wow, you heard Bob's place sold in like 2 days on the market for $250,000 cash? That's amazing. I wonder what mine's worth. And next thing you know, these speculators and people that are coming in with money from outside are like, this is cheap, guys. You guys realize how cheap this is? This is amazing. I'll take two. And that speculation, which we love and appreciate because we all got here at some point, we're trying to Katie bar the door. We're talking about, though, what will drive up your taxable value? And is it fair that outside influence could easily drive locals out? And that's we need to stop that. So, but it's taxation on unrealized gains. I've had so many realtors, Michael, that have said to me, palm to the forehead, wow, you're right. I didn't even think about this. That is tax on unrealized gains. And we know it instinctively, but when you really hear that phrase, it strikes a chord and should strike at your nervous system.
All right, number 6, real quick here. We got about 90 seconds.
Okay, what if the market goes down? Okay, taxable value will also go down. So we want to be reflexive to the fact that if the actual fair market value of your property or the assessed value goes down below what your taxable value is, we'll likewise adjust your taxable rate downward. So we want to be reflexive with the market, never ahead of it. Always not reactive to it either necessarily up, but if it goes down, we want to react and be able to bring you tax relief.
Yeah, you'd have to request a reassessment and then you'd be locked in at that lower price. But it would, again, it would help you ensure that during economic downturns or property crashes or whatever, that you could, you would not be left holding the bag, so to speak. So
exactly. And the assessing department's not going away. They'll continue to monitor that. They're not going anywhere. It's just the taxable number is going to be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Chris Story is our guest. We've got one final segment dead ahead, and we're going to talk to him about, okay, you got the plan. What's the mechanism? How do we make this work? What are his thoughts? What is he planning? How can we help? Chris Story is our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
So Chris Story is our guest. We're continuing here in the chat room. Jim says property taxes on recreational property is insane. I agree, especially ones that have like no road access and everything else. That's madness. Kevin mentions that there was a bill in the legislature last year that tried to rein in rogue assessors, because we were hearing there's lots of problems in Fairbanks, and I know that there was some down here in other areas where the assessors were kind of running off the rails. It was HB 347 from Julie Colomb, and he goes on to talk and say that Alaskans deserve transparency and fairness when it comes to property tax. HB 347 puts some baseline requirements in place for Alaska municipalities while preserving the important principle of local control. The bill has the state set baseline standards for assessors to use, so Alaskans know what the rules are for figuring property values. It also lets municipalities adopt their own ordinance if state or national standards don't fit. And it also changes the default for who hears tax appeals, I think, as well, as what he's trying to say there. But that's a bigger part of the problem as well, right? I mean, somebody else just said, the just new comment just popped up, said, when my friend's house, this is Ron, he said, when my friend's house was borough appraised at well over what it was worth, he said he was going to get his own bank appraisal. The assessor told him that the borough doesn't accept bank appraisals. My friend also told the assessor he was going to contest the appraisal, and the appraiser told him, quote, go ahead, next year we'll just raise it even more. It's the punitive, like you said, it's the people factor in some of this stuff.
And why should you be, and we can get into this in the next segment too, but why should you be punished for improving your property? That I had the assessors come to my house this year, appealed my value on my personal residence, and they said, oh, by the way, we did notice that you've paved your driveway. Oh, crap. Okay. And he said, but we're not going to do anything this year because we wouldn't want it to appear punitive. I don't believe that was the word he used, but that's the expression basically. We wouldn't want it to appear. So we'll add that on next year. It's like, you know what? No, I don't think so. No, don't penalize me. It took me hard work to earn the money to do the pavement. Then I hired people. I had to pay tax on that money. Then what was left over, I hired a crew. That crew got hired by the boss. The boss is paying them. They're all getting wages. Those wages are spent locally. I even paid sales tax on the project, for goodness sake. And they're all going to be spending that money locally within the community. No, get your hands out of my pocket. No further. I'm not going to pay, $25,000 to pave this and then continue to pay again and again and again just for the fact that I improved my property.
Right.
Not going to happen.
No,
but it's going to take all of us. And we can get into the mechanism when we come back, but it's going to, I can sit here and bloviate about this with you once a week for the next year, and that's all it's going to be. It really is going to take all of us to get our shoulder against the wheel. And I'm happy to be the mouthpiece and take the hits and watch all my properties next year. The assessed value is going to go through the roof. But okay, all right, I'll take the slings and arrows, but because I know there's a ton of people lining up.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump running across the country, and suddenly he looks back and like, oh, there's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And this is great. We're really getting a lot of momentum.
Yeah, no, exactly. Donna in the chat room just said that she just emailed you the new law that Kevin was talking about. SB 179 apparently is the newer version of that law.
And that's great. And that's great, if that passes. But what it's like getting that through the legislature, anything through the legislature, God only knows what they're going to hang on to it. And then at the same time, that's just telling That's just a basically which metric will you use to overtax me, and how will you, all of the appeals process, all of that would go away. Can you imagine how many fewer appeals there would be every single cycle if we had this proposition in place? And we wouldn't even need to be thinking about reform necessarily of the appeals process. It's going to virtually not go away, but it's going to minimize to almost nothing. It'll become nil.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it seems like we're arguing over, Frank says, a fair act, a new spin on keep paying the government. I mean, that's the thing. They still want their pound of flesh, Chris, they're not going to want to give it up. And I don't know what the fiscal note on something like this would be. I don't know what the actual loss would be on actual tax revenue. But like you said,
but hold on. Why would you demand a fiscal note? We just had a bond on our ballot for $32 million. It was going to cost us $52 million. There's no fiscal note.
There's no fiscal note with that.
And when I commented about 3 of these properties coming off the tax rolls, I was met with a smirk and like, man, it's not that much. It's going to be $625,000 lost to the borough over 20 years. Who cares? I mean, that's nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we do have to pay for the schools and the roads and fire protection. We do have to pay for these things and police, and so I get it. We got to find a way to fund these services that keep the lights on,
right,
so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chris Story is our guest. ilovehomeralaska.com is where you can find all of his stuff, and we're going to dive into the mechanism of how we get this pushed through. I mean, he's got the outline, he's got the idea, he's got we've got real world examples of it. And we're going to see how we get this pushed through on the other side. We're going to continue right now. Chris Story is our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, we're continuing now with Chris Story, author, radio show host, potter, realtor. We're talking about the FAIR Act, which is his idea to stop the taxation through unrealized gains that we're seeing on property taxes right now. He just laid everything out in the last segment, the 6 different points. But now we have to find the mechanism. I mean, the good news is we have a real world example of this, right? In California, Chris, right? I mean, that was a statewide proposition that they pushed forward. This is more, you're focusing in on it from a borough angle. So how do we move this idea forward? Is there an assembly member that is interested in it? Or, I mean, this is something that I think it's specific right now to the Kenai Peninsula, but like I said, could affect all boroughs. So what is the mechanism in your mind for moving this forward?
Well, selfishly, I mean, look at the success Florida has had, and all through the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic, I kept thinking and saying out loud, wow, what if Ron DeSantis was governor of Alaska? Wouldn't it be a different place? Wouldn't it be, he's a little shorter, but wouldn't it be a different place altogether to live? And so in some ways, Florida created a haven, a tax haven. They created a freedom haven. They created a freedom of speech and thought. And anyway, why not do that on the Kenai Peninsula? Why not create? And part of it is, look, I love talking to, I had a gal from Fairbanks contact me last time. She's on the assembly up there last time you and I spoke about this. I love that Fairbanks might be interested. I love that somebody in Sutton reached out to me and might be interested. I love that people outside the borough are saying, oh, hold on, we actually really like this too. Great. So you can borrow our playbook if you want, or if enough momentum and steam gets built behind this, then maybe it could become statewide. But selfishly, a little bit, I wouldn't mind seeing the Kenai Peninsula borough have a little bit of an advantage and become a tax haven. But also, it's the old adage of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, trying to tackle something statewide. And I've lived here my entire life. I've never been to Barrow or Kotzebue or anywhere on the North Slope borough. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I can handle this. I think we collectively here on the borough, on the Kenai Peninsula, we can do this. And it doesn't need to be a statewide people's proposition. It doesn't need to be a borough, a ballot prop like California had, or like we just had with Phil Lizon on the repeal of ranked choice, or ranked choice getting on to the state ballot and all that. I think it can be done more localized, a little bit smaller footprint, maybe make a little bit deeper impression. And if the rest of the state wants to follow suit, or any borough that wishes to, could follow suit as well. But the question is going to be, and opponents are going to say, hold on, what about the children? What about the schools? You got to fund the schools. You got to pay for, as you and I were just talking about in the break there, roads, fire, police protection, the hospitals. You're going to need a new CT scanner. We're going to need to continue to fund the things that we fund, and the reason that makes a community a desirable place to live and a safe community with which to raise children and all of that. So how do you get the money? Well, we've already talked about the economic impact of you keeping more of your money, the benefit of that, and that you recirculate it within the community, and you know better how to spend your money. I think do a better job recirculating it than the government does once it's been confiscated. The other piece of it is, let's talk about the percentage of ownership of real estate in the state of Alaska. It's 1% private, 99% municipal, federal, state, or other non-tax entities like native corporations and so forth. We have 1% private property. Let's take a very close look at the lands that the borough is holding currently and start disposing of them. They need to hold land for what? Hospitals? Yep, got it. Actually, the city, ironically, in Homer owns that.
Right.
Never mind, the borough owns the building and the equipment. But yeah, okay, we need a place for hospitals, we need a place for schools, and we need a little bit of government infrastructure. Got it. We've already got those pieces laid out. Now we look at every piece of the borough's holding, and just like Trump has appointed Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to do head the Doge department of government, overspending and regulation on what they're actually expending. Same said could be done for lands owned by the borough, such that we take a very close look and say, which property shall we dispose of and in what order, and then let's get to work. And let's put those properties back on the tax roll, and let's get those things generating not just income in the form of property tax, but income in the form of development opportunity. And that will more than offset what we're, quote, losing through this new program should we pass it.
Right. Okay. So again, the mechanism on how we do it, you can't have like a proposition on a borough level. So you're going to have to find a champion to push this forward. Right. So I'm an assembly member or an administration. We got to get it all laid out. You got to get it all, put in proper form and everything else. What is the process, and where are you at in it?
What I'm requesting, and in this point of view that's going to be coming out in the Homer News next week, and every time I'm talking about this, I am recommending and suggesting that we get this on. We urge our assembly, our neighbors who raise their hands and say, "Yeah, I'd like to lead you guys. I'll lead you." We need to encourage them to take a look at this and get it on the borough assembly agenda. Somebody needs to sponsor it on the assembly as a resolution, or at least a talking point for the moment, and get friendly with it and begin to talk as an assembly, and maybe not through the legalese of it yet, or a resolution. And the one that I've drafted, and I got a lot of help from people that are way smarter than me, look at it, edit, make recommendations, and run it through the grist mill, if you will. So it may be close, but it's not perfect, of course. But we need somebody, to use your word, champion it on the borough assembly. And on anonymity, somebody did reach out to me from the assembly and said, I'm interested. So I'm going to take that person at their word. I didn't give them a copy just yet because I want to go through a few different iterations. And I'm glad I did wait, because it's gotten better. It's gotten actually really just narrowing the scope of it, and actually inclusive now will be the senior citizen exemption, people with disabilities, and transfer exclusions within families for intergenerational retention. All that's kind of changed, and like, wow, okay, this is getting better. But we will need each of us to contact your assembly person. You have one assembly person in Seward. In the Homer area, Anchor Point, we have two. Contact them and get your hands on a copy of this. It'll be out in the paper next week if you want a physical copy. Talk to your assembly person. And then again, we need to be reactive to and sensitive to the fact some people are going to be scared. Hold on. Where's the money going to come from? Well, we've already addressed a couple of ways that that's going to happen. The other group is going to be concerned that, oh, great, now you just squeeze this end and they're going to go to that. It's like a water tube. You squeeze this, it's going to move to the other end, and increase sales tax and or all kinds of other new new taxation. Nope, we don't have to go there. We can say, no, we're going to look at other avenues of economic impact that are going to be better than what we're currently collecting. And we just need to be able to be confident in how we propose this. And we're not talking about no tax. We're just talking about a fair tax act. In fact, this is how our country was formed, over taxation on tea 250 years ago. And now I think it's time for another peaceful revolution whereby we just convince enough of our neighbors that tax on unrealized gains is wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to me this is a no-brainer, and like you said, I have been an opponent of property taxes in one form or another for a couple decades. I remember talking about this in some of my first shows, how irritated I was about property taxes, but I had never considered it as the unrealized gain. And when you lay it out in that light, you realize that there is, like you said, there is no other financial or economic mechanism that taxes on unrealized gains like this. That makes no sense whatsoever. And when it's described like that, I think people are like, oh yeah, that's a paper gain. That means why am I? And then what does it do? Again, the ripple effect of those things. I mean, I'm happy to hear that somebody is interested on the assembly. I will hold my breath to see exactly what happens with this, but how can people help you out, Chris? We're down to the last 2 minutes.
My number is always open, 299-7653, text or call. You can email me, go to my website, ilovehomeralaska.com. I think even just raising your hand and saying I'm interested, which every time you and I talk about this, people do. And just then once we've got a resolution that's workable and passes legal muster, once we've got that, then we can almost demand that it get onto the assembly's agenda.
Yeah.
In the meantime, just vocally supporting it and calling your assembly people and saying, hey, take a look at this FAIR Act. I'm in favor of it. Let's talk about it. And we don't have to be rude or belligerent, but just say, I'm behind this. I'd like to know your thoughts. What do they think? And so I'm likewise going to be calling my assembly people.
Yeah, no, and it'll be an ordinance form because it has to change the code, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. I'd really like to get more people's attention on this, and like I said, you and I are going to continue to have this discussion because, again, once you realize that this is unrealized gains, you realize how unfair that is. And we'll continue with this. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you in the new year. Merry Christmas, my friend, and have a happy holidays.
Merry Christmas to you, Michael. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. I'll call you here in a little bit. All right, folks. We are out of time for today. Tomorrow is the final Firearms Friday of 2024. We'll see you tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. Yeah, no, I mean, I could definitely see Rob Yunt, like Brian just said, I could see Rob Yunt getting behind this in the Matsu. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see this as a statewide ballot proposition. I mean, that's what happened in California, right? Ballot Prop 13, that's what this is based on. I would love to see something like that. But the fact that they're taxing you on unrealized gains is, well, problematic to say the least, for sure. All right, my friends. Well, tomorrow is Friday, and we get a chance to do our Firearms Friday bit. And I'm hoping to have some guests on tomorrow. If not, it'll be me and you, and we'll just hang out and enjoy our time together for that one final day. All right, gotta go. Be kind, love one another, live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.